So thank you all so much for joining us. The group, as always, is facilitated by author Dale T. Phillips. I always struggle with the T. He has published novels, story collections, poetry, nonfiction, and over 80 short stories. Stephen King was Dale's college writing teacher, and since then, Dale has found time to appear on stage, television, radio, and in an independent feature film. He also competed on Jeopardy, where he lost in spectacular fashion. Dale is a member of many writing organizations, including the Mystery Writers of America and the Sisters in Crime. And interestingly, Dale has traveled to all 50 states, as well as Mexico, Canada, and throughout Europe. So all nearly 25 of us who are watching live and the many more that will watch the recording, let's give a big virtual round of applause to Dale for joining us again tonight. And Dale, you can take it away. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Robert. And tonight's guest, we are very pleased to present James W. Ziskin, and he's even more widely traveled than myself. He is known for his award-winning crime fiction, particularly the Ellie Stone mystery series, which has won the awards of the Anthony, the Macavity, and the Barry Award, various novels in that series. His novels and short stories have been finalists for the Edgar, the Agatha, the Lefty, and the Sue Grafton Memorial Awards. This is quite a bit. It's almost an EGOT, I think. He pursued his passion by studying Romance languages and literature at the University of Pennsylvania. He speaks French and Italian, and his background has significantly influenced his writing style and his storylines. Before becoming a full-time writer, he worked as a photo news producer and writer in New York City. He also spent 15 years in the Hollywood post-production industry, managing large international operations in subtitling, localization, and visual effects. His international experiences include living and working in France, Italy, and India. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you very much. And what a nice introduction. Yeah. I've been around a long time, I think. So
you have the kind of life that people envy, and it's like, well, oh my God, what a perfect background for writing. As myself, having done and worked in so many different things and been to so many places, it's very easy when they say, where do you get your ideas? And you're like, oh, they never stop.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually right now, for the last few years, I've come out of what was my retirement, and I'm teaching high school here in Massachusetts, teaching high school French, which is a lot of fun. And it's, I'm mining it for ideas for stories. Actually, I have a book coming out next July 2026, that is set actually in a middle school, what we used to call junior high school in my day. And it's set in 1968 around Christmas time. It is not a Christmas novel. It's a fun, but I think it has some fun parts to it. But it's we can talk more about that later if you want. But anyway, I've been making great use of my experience, as you do in life. You use any experience is great for writing. I've always said if you're an accountant, that does not prevent you from being a great mystery writer or a crime writer. You can just set your crimes in the world of accounting, and that could be really fascinating. So it can be anything.
Well, let's begin with your origin story. One day you picked up a pen and said, I can do this.
Well, that day was when I was 12 years old. I wrote my first book, my first novel, when I was 12. And I'm very fond of saying, it was, 110 perfectly fine sheets of paper ruined. It was about what you'd expect from a 12-year-old, just not a great effort. But I suppose for 12-year-olds,
but it's a beginning.
Yeah, and I can't even look at it today, but I do have one hard copy, squirreled away in a box in the storage room. But I would never show it to anyone at this point.
So after that beginning, then what happened?
Well, I always wanted to, I guess from that age, I wanted to be a writer. There was something about it that just appealed to me, the storytelling and maybe the patches on the on the elbows of a
And the
sports boat
pipe
or
and the
something.
Irish
In the
setter
pipe,
at your
yeah.
feet by the fire.
Yeah, exactly. There was just something about it. I wanted to do that, and I've always loved words. So that's why, my professional experience and my personal experience has really been, shaped by language, foreign languages, linguistics, English. I just love grammar, much to the dismay of my students.
I was gonna say teaching French, yeah, and it was all he taught was grammar, and I'm like, I want to learn the words.
Right. Well, now they encourage us not really to stress the grammar, but to work on communication. But the point is, we all have grammar in our heads. We just don't think of it. We know what sounds right and what doesn't. What doesn't sound grammatical doesn't make sense. So, I try to tell my students that. But just jokingly, I will tell them, I just love grammar, and shall we do some more grammar? And they say, no, let's
watch them run out the door.
Yeah. So after that novel, it was a few years before. I mean, I wrote some, kind of I think a half novel at some point in high school, and then when I was in college, I wrote a much better book, I suppose, a much better novel, but it still wasn't very good. It was set in the world of academia. It was a short novel about an aging professor who gets not trapped, but like the weather traps him and his secretary for an evening, and he kind of comes to grips and faces the failures of his life during that evening. I love, by the way, weather trapping people or anything that traps people together in a place. It's always a good recipe for a good story. And then in graduate school, I wrote a huge World War II historical novel set in France. And that was still bad, but getting better, but nowhere near ready for publication. It was about 150,000 words. It was a big book.
Wow.
But you know what? It's part of the training, in my opinion. You write these books, and even if they never see the light of day, it's not wasted effort.
But you have to learn how to put one word in front of the other, and to keep at it, and to persist enough to finish something and go, okay, it sucks, but I've learned a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more you write, somebody once said, and it certainly wasn't me, that you've got to get a certain number of just bad writing words out of you.
A million words before you really can sell something.
Yeah, and it's not far off, I think.
Yeah.
So but none of it is wasted. And there was some of it that was good, I'm sure, that was okay, and then other parts that were flabby, and there was the passive voice, and there was too many adjectives and adverbs, I'm sure. After that, it was so many years later when I really started reading mysteries in my 30s, I guess it would be, and I thought, well, I could try doing this. And I was reading people like Dick Francis, and I was reading the Sarah Paretsky books and the Sue Grafton books that were wonderful, and obviously Sherlock Holmes and the golden age of with Dorothy Sayers and Agatha Christie. I loved all that stuff.
So unlike most mystery writers, you didn't start with Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, that sort of thing.
No,
you came to it later.
Yeah, much later. And as a matter of fact, when I was a teenager, I remember one book that really, really struck me and hadn't left a lasting influence was Murder on the Orient Express. So it wasn't the kids stuff. Somehow I missed out on those. I mean, I knew later on I did look at some Nancy Drew, and I really enjoyed them. I mean, kind of in a fun, guilty pleasure kind of way. I enjoyed reading those. I'd never really read the Hardy Boys, though.
Yeah, that was a gateway drug for many mystery writers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really loved Dick Francis. I really loved his brand of an amateur sleuth. and that's what, so I think I kind of followed that in a way. I mean, obviously totally different. Ellie Stone is not it's not the same thing, although I did write one book set in the world of horse racing with her as the lead. But so I did write a book, and it was much better than the others. This would be in maybe the early 90s, no, the late 80s probably, but still not there. I wrote a second book at that time, and they were getting better, and I actually managed to get an agent at that time, but it was not a good relationship. She is long gone at this point. But I remember she liked the first book, but then didn't like communication. So, for example, and we can talk about this, yeah, because it's very informative for our audience, I think, too.
Yeah.
But you have to feel comfortable with your agent. I think having a bad relationship is worse than not having an agent. Mm-hmm. But she would just not communicate, and then after about a year or so, I don't know, I sent not an email, I sent a letter, and she said, "Oh, call my office next week." So I called the office as she had asked, and she said, "Why are you pestering me?" She said, "I'll call you," and I said, "But you asked me to call you." And
wow.
So the second book she didn't like, and I thought, oh, well, I'll just get another agent. And of course, so we parted company, amicably. I mean, there was no sales. But then, life gets in the way. And I think everybody in the audience should obviously know that. I'm sure they do. You have a job, you have a family, you move, you grow up. And so for many years, everything got put on hold for me. And, I built a career, and I worked in Los Angeles, I worked in New York, spent a lot of time abroad. Before I finally said, in about, I don't know, what was it, 2006 or so, I just said, my dream of being a writer is kind of slipping away. And if I'm ever going to do this, I better get on my horse. And I think that was when I finally started. Well, I think I had the maturity, and also somewhat the maturity, or a measure of the maturity that you need to be a good writer, a better writer. And so I set about writing a new thing, and that was the Ellie Stone books. So the first one, I managed to, sorry, it wasn't the Ellie Stone. There was actually a cozy mystery that I wrote, set in a summer camp. So it was kind of a fun mystery.
Were they trapped by the weather?
Yeah. At times there were lots of good thunderstorms. It was set in upstate, in the Adirondacks, upstate New York, and well, I guess that's beyond upstate. But anyway, it was it landed me another agent, which was great, and that was with John Hawkins and Associates, which is the
How'd you
great
get
agency.
The first one.
The first one I got the old-fashioned way, just by querying. I had, what was the big book, Writers?
Writer's Digest Guide or Jeff Herman's Guide, either one.
Yeah, I remember Jeff Herman's Guide. This was, I think, Writer's Market, and they would list publishers and agents, and then you'd write a query letter, and you'd wait forever, and I don't know. I was lucky enough to get an agent, and I thought, oh, I've arrived.
I've made it. I'm on my way.
It's just a matter of time till I'm published and then on the New York Times
bestseller
list. And that was 40 years ago, So
I had an agent, but then 6 months would go by and not hearing anything. It's like, hey, anything happening? Nope. Mm-hmm. Okay, 6 months go by. Nope. I'm like, I could be dead before I get this stuff done. So I went with small press, and now I'm independent, because I'm like, they just take too long.
Yeah, and that's great. Those are great options, and they're all, valid. I think the most important criterion is that you take it seriously and professionally. That you can self-publish, you can independently publish, you can go with small publishers, or if you're lucky enough to get a big contract with a big 5 publisher, that's fantastic. But that doesn't happen to everyone, and it hasn't happened to me. So, but the second agent I got was he took to the character in the book, and he thought there was some promise, and that book never sold. So that was like 2009 and then I started writing the Ellie Stone books, and he that one took a while, and it was kind of just very fortunate for me. He had told me he was about to retire or semi-retire. So he was, if he couldn't sell it in the next 2 months, he was going to have to, let me go, but he would recommend me to some other agent. Well, with like a month to go, he sold the book. So he kept me on and sold then the next 6 after that too.
Was it a one book deal or a multi-book deal that he sold?
So he was very wise, and he said, let's try, they asked about a multi-book deal. He said, let's see how they are first. So let's sell the one book.
Good idea.
He also negotiated some better, this is what an agent can do for you, if you're fortunate enough to find a good agent, is like he negotiated some better terms that have actually come back years and years later now to benefit me. Things like what constitutes out of print, because today with digital formats, it's always in print, right? The publisher, if they are a jerk, they can just say, well, sorry, it's not out of print. There it is. It's available to anyone forever. It's not like a hard copy that has to be stored in a warehouse or something like that. So, but his idea in the contract was to really put that, to put the floor of what constituted out of print fairly high.
Yeah, minimum number of copies per time frame.
Yeah, and so even all copies, it was high enough that, let's face it, after 10, 12 years, your book isn't selling that much. So I haven't tried to get my rights back, but because I just can't face maybe the aggravation of just fighting with somebody to get them back. But by rights, they should be mine at this point, but some of them at least. So anyway, that was good. So I got an agent. He finally did sell the Ellie Stone book, and then he sold the next ones, still to the same publisher. And then after the 7th one, I think and this happens, right? It happens to everyone. The publisher decided, the publishing house was sold. It was small to mid-size, a great place at the beginning, and they sold to somebody else. And that was not quite as good an experience. And so the new publisher, after my one book with them, which was Turned to Stone, the 7th Ellie Stone book, which, by the way, won the Macavity Award and the Barry Award that year. That was the last one with them, and we kind of both, they didn't want any more, and I didn't want any more with them. So and then about the same time, my agent decided, I think he was going to retire. So I found a new agent. It's a little easier when you've got 8 books or 7 books out there. So, and you
that have done well, yeah.
And if you, that have had some good, reviews and I guess decent sales and award nominations, that kind of thing. But also it's getting out there and pushing yourself in a nice way as a brand, and getting to know, networking with people, getting to know other writers. It really helps. So that's where I can't recommend highly enough the writers conferences, the VoucherCon and the Left Coast Prime, and all of the different. There's Thriller Fest that just finished in New York.
Yeah, Crime Bay, Killer Nashville, Maine Crime Wave,
Domestic.
which I'm going to in September.
Nashville. Killer Nashville. You won the Silver Falch.
Did not win it. Was a finalist, one of the top picks, but did not win it. But that was like really the first time I'd submitted, because I don't normally submit to awards, because I'm like, okay, I'm not going for awards, but once in a while it's like, all right, let's throw it out there and see what happens. Because I don't write commercial. I don't write for the big sales and for the big markets, because I do what I want to do and tell the stories I want to tell. So that's why I'm independent, because then you don't have to worry about somebody dropping you or asking you to put a dog in it, or somebody from another country, or whatever. So
absolutely, no, and you've got that great. It's certainly a harder boiled tone to your books than mine. But I mean, that's great. I mean, if everybody wrote the same way, things would be pretty boring.
Well, it's the old school of, Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler, John D. MacDonald, Robert B. Parker, even a touch of Mickey Spillane, and people like, your writing reminds me of Parker. And I go, well, thank you. That's good. Hopefully the early books and not the, not the later ones where he's repeating himself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And now somebody else writes them, but from beyond. Well, no. For him, I guess, from beyond.
Yeah, he finished Poodle Springs by Chandler, and then somebody's taking over his now, and everybody's taking over Dead People's. But I'm not a fan of that myself.
I find it, you know what? It's clearly just there to sell books.
To sell books.
I mean, it's it's not the same. It's not the same writer,
and
it might be great writing, but it's just. I mean, it's not. And I don't want to make any enemies. It's not AI, obviously. It's a human writing it, but in a sense, it's still an imitation.
It is an imitation, right? And it's a cover band, yeah.
Yeah, and I've written a piece that's, I do a month, twice a month blog with 9 other great writers called 7 Criminal Minds.
You can throw that in the chat whenever you want. So
yeah, the name is 7, but there are 10 of us. And at any rate, I don't know. I think there's a reason for that, traditional, historical reason. Let me try to put that in. I'll try to put that in later. But it's the one, I've got one coming out, I think Thursday, where I talk about AI. And my question is, I use the metaphor, if you will, not a metaphor, but the comparison of would anybody pay to watch a robot hit a golf ball?
Yes.
And it's like, you might look at it and say, wow, it hit it far and it hit it straight. And now what? I'm going to go watch real golfers, and that's just one of the things, would you rather, listen to a great impressionist sing just like Frank Sinatra, or would you rather watch or listen to Frank Sinatra?
Exactly.
I would rather listen to Frank Sinatra. So that kind of thing. So I mean, look, they can be good stories. It's not that. It's just, I also don't. It's a personality thing too. And a work habits thing. I don't think I could ever write with a partner. It's just not the way I work.
Same.
I understand a lot of people do that, and that's fine. And if that works for people in our audience today, that I am in no way disparaging that. It's just that's something that I can't do. My cats are chasing each other if you hear noise. But,
we have that often. Yeah, I'm very idiosyncratic too. It's just my style is mine, and I'm not going to try to mesh it with somebody else. I have done some homage and pastiche of other writers, and those have worked quite well, but I'm not going to do it extensively and at length and over. It's just like sometimes I'll do it just for a fun exercise.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I wrote a short story. I always say, I wouldn't do this kind of thing, and I wrote a pastiche of Sherlock Holmes, a Sherlock Holmes story for an anthology that Laurie R. King and Les Klinger were doing a couple of years ago, and I'm glad I did it because the story was nominated for an Edgar. So it didn't win, but that's okay. That was a thrill. Let me put this in the thing. 7
okay, I'll let you do that.
Criminal Minds blog. I think it's called Blogspot or something. Something along those lines.
Blogspot.blog, yeah. Okay,
you would find it if you just look up 7 Criminal Minds.
No, I'm interested because I love Bombay Monsoon. When did that come into the queue?
That was after I left, my second agent, who, when he retired, and I found a new agent. But I'd long wanted to write about India. I've spent so much time there. I've spent nearly 4 years in India over the years. A lot of it for work, but also I'm married to a woman who was born in India, and now she's an American citizen. But and so her family is still there, and we visit. We did visit very often until COVID. As a matter of fact, I'm always bragging about my 56 separate trips to India.
Wow. That is a
56
lot of
times.
miles racked up.
It was fantastic. And now they've all been wiped out, all the frequent flyer miles. But for 10 years, it was like, 4 or 5 times a year for work.
Whew.
So, and months at a time sometimes, because we were kind of setting up, businesses there for the company we worked for. My wife and I were working for the same company. But it's just been it was an amazing experience professionally and personally for me. So I wanted to write something about India, and I love historical novels. So, and I am a child, I guess, of the 70s, and I love that era. And I've got a novel that I'm just starting now that is set in New York City, by the way, 1977, summer of 77, which is the summer of the Son of Sam and Disco, and New York City is bankrupt, and it's going to be, it's a serious novel, but I think it's going to be fun. But at any rate, I wanted to write something, and so the emergency, so-called, was 1975 in India, when the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi declared a state of national emergency, which gave her broad powers to censor the press, throw her political opponents in jail, which she did, and do all these things to protect the security of the nation. But generally, people felt she was doing it to save her own, not neck, but her own job. She was convicted of a very minor election, not crime, but something that was not
malfeasance.
Malfeasance. It was apparently somebody in the government, I think this was the case, built a grandstand for one of her rallies, and so it was like she was using government, but it was like she slaughtered her opponent in the election. It was just this was in 1971, so it was 4 years later that the lawsuit finally came to pass, and her opponent sued, saying that she basically had cheated, even though she had won by a landslide.
Yeah.
And so the High Court said, okay, you can't, that election is nullified. And as I mentioned in the book, you can't be the PM, the Prime Minister, if you're not an MP, a member of Parliament, which she suddenly was not. And the Supreme Court gave her like 2 weeks or 20 days or something to appeal. And during those 20 days, she declared this emergency in the dark of night. And she stayed in power for the next 18 months.
Sorry, gang, got to take over again.
Yeah. And then finally, she did lift the emergency a year and a half later, and was promptly voted out of office.
Wow.
She did come back. She did come back a couple of years after that, and then was unfortunately assassinated by her own bodyguards. But I wanted to write this story, and so it's a story of an American journalist, young and eager, who goes over there trying to make a career for himself, and he lands just as the emergency is declared. His hands are tied as a journalist. The government won't let him post any stories that don't toe the line. So it's that, and then of course there's a woman, there's some danger, there's all kinds of stuff like that.
Well, I loved it, and I had great echoes of The Year of Living Dangerously.
Yeah,
where this
I think
amateur
so.
comes in and he gets embroiled in the politics and the deadliness of it in this foreign country, and he's just so over his head.
Yeah, absolutely. And my character Danny is definitely in over his head. Some readers delight in his kind of naivete, and others, kind of roll their eyes. He's not your typical,
right? Not the super Bond,
hero.
Gonna solve everything.
He's not a super Bond. He's more like, he's not like Cary Grant in North by Northwest, but he's like an average person now in an extraordinary situation. And he falls for this woman who happens to have some shady, an Indian woman who has some shady associations with her foreign Belgian, he happens to be, lover, and who is a very shady character. There's a lot of wondering about what he's up to. So Yeah,
So
it was a lot of fun
that was
to
in
write.
between Ellie's then that you wrote that?
Yeah, this was after the seventh Ellie, and I'm sure I'll write another Ellie Stone. It's just I don't know quite when. The book I wrote that's coming out next summer it's called The Prank, and it's set in, as mentioned, in a junior high school in 1968, and it's the story. I promised we'd get back to this. It's the story of. It's the story of a young kid. Let's say he's 13, and he is definitely, let's just say he's a sociopath. I mean, he's not out to hurt anyone, but he just doesn't really care about other people, except for his dad, who is a terrific alcoholic after the death of his wife, and he can't function. The son takes care of him. The father just manages to get to work to afford his beer money. It's in a small little working class town on the Mohawk River in central New York in 1968, and not a very prosperous town. And so over the Christmas break, this kid and his best friend they're friendly with one of their teachers who's very popular, and they're helping him on a Saturday put the Christmas lights up on his house with a third friend. And the prank is that they pulled the ladder away from the roof as he's stringing the lights on the roof, the teacher. And this is on page 1, so I'm not giving away anything. And it's an aluminum ladder, and the lights are tangled with the ladder, and they pull it back, and it's too heavy. It backs up. One friend doesn't let go. The ladder hits the power lines, and the kid and the teacher are killed instantly.
Ouch.
Now the two left over look at each other, and it's like, oh my God,
let's run.
They run, and and they want it. Obviously people think it's an accident. Nobody knew he was there, but the other kid is a little more sensitive, and he just is really having a breakdown and wants to tell.
Yeah.
And my main character is like, no, you can't tell, because I'm not going to reform school. Who will take care of my dad? And then as the break arrives, his English teacher, who was dating the dead teacher and is devastated, she is, by the accident, sees him being bullied, and she kind of comes to his rescue, and she realizes after a week or two of this tremendous grief that helping this kid took her mind off it, and it kind of gave her some solace. And so they start hanging out together over Christmas break, the teacher and the 13-year-old boy. Now, she's not interested in him in that way, but the scandal that would erupt if anybody were to know, were to find out, would be tremendous. So it's kind of a secret relationship over that Christmas break, and some other bad things happen. I call it smoldering menace meets best intentions.
Suburban thriller, a little bit.
It's kind of a little tiny working class kind of industrial town.
Now, if you're in that area of New York, that's kind of like William Kennedy and John Gardner area. You fans of theirs?
A little west of William Kennedy. I love those books, by the way. The Albany, the ones.
Ironweed and those.
Ironweed, great stuff. I really love that. And I grew up in not too far from Albany. So
okay.
But this is, it's still along the Mohawk. I grew up on the Mohawk, but east of there. Anyway, that's the one coming out next year. We'll see. I mean, it's definitely a departure. I have 2 narrators. I have the 13-year-old, and I have the teacher, the English teacher, the woman.
How do you plan in advance what you're going to do next?
Well, for a mystery, this is a great question. For a mystery, you do have to plan. I think the planning is so, there's not one way to do it. So a lot of writers, they're pantsers, and they'll just do one foot in front of the other, and then they fix it on the back end, right? You have to repair things. Other people plan, meticulously on the front end, and that makes the writing go smoother, but you're putting more time in at the beginning. I think both ways work, and I've done it both ways. And I don't know, I remember writing kind of by the seat of my pants a mystery, and there was just a lot of correction and fixing and looking for broken links afterwards. But it worked out. I think it was turned to stone, actually. So it did work out. It won a couple of awards. So, but I've done it both ways. Now, a thriller, on the other hand, I don't think that's the issue at all, because planning it doesn't all have to fit together like a puzzle, right? It's like a traditional mystery. It's more about, let's keep the reader turning pages and entertained. What's going to happen next, as opposed to what happened. In a mystery, you want to know what happened, and I didn't come up with this. Somebody much smarter than I did. And I think, but I agree. I think a mystery is what happened, and a thriller is what is going to happen.
Yep.
What the reader is asking.
Okay,
so that's how I work. But I find a thriller is faster to write.
Oh yeah, you want to keep the pace up, so you're right. The feel of it is faster, so you're in that mode of going rapidly. So work habits. How do you certain number of words each day, certain number of hours?
Well, I think well, now I'm teaching, so during the school year, I'm not able to do that. But summer has arrived, so I'm working on the new one. And the only recent comparisons are the Bombay Monsoon and the Prank, which I wrote basically over 2 summers. The Prank I wrote the first draft of 90,000 words thereabouts in 40 days. I said, if I'm not going to write it now, I'm not going to have time to write it. Yeah. So, and I think it's important to have a workspace that you associate with work. So I like going to the library. It's open 6 days a week. I sit there for, 2 hours, maybe 3 on a very productive day. But I also write on my iPad with a Bluetooth keyboard, so I can write anywhere, anytime. And I do. So I'll take a couple of hours in the summer every day in the library, where I know this is work. I'm not fooling around. I'm not,
Right. No internet.
Yeah, well, I need internet to look things up, but I'm not messing around like surfing and going down rabbit holes.
Doom scrolling.
Right. Doom scrolling is definitely. But then I can write in the evening too, when I get home, maybe when it's time to go to bed. One of the things that I really advise everybody, aspiring writers and established writers, to do is keep track of your production.
Absolutely. I
keep a spreadsheet, and I love it. It inspires me to write, because I'd say, wow, I've got 11 days. I've got an 11-day streak here of hitting at least 500 words. And some of them were like over 1,000, or some of them were over 2,000. And you make deals with yourself, and you say, wait a minute, maybe you have a barbecue in the summer, and it's like, oh, you get home and oh my God, it's 10:30 and I haven't written anything today. I was being social, but I have this 21-day streak. I can't break it. So you sit down and you write something. Get 500 words down.
Right.
400, 200. It doesn't just keep moving forward. Exactly. So, and then I have all kinds of little calculations in the spreadsheet: average words per day, estimated word count, so distance from finish, that kind of thing. I just love doing all those things. And I will highlight like the best production day. Like if I get 3,000 words, that's highlighted. And what happens is, as you get closer to the end of a book, and you know this, Dale, it comes faster and faster.
Oh, yeah.
Because I always liken it to, imagine the horizon 180 degrees in front of you when you start a book. But as you write, you narrow your possibilities. And so as you get closer to the end, it's narrower and narrower what your options are. And you've got these ideas that are ready to go. And you're aiming now for that goal.
And you, by God, want to finish.
Yeah, and so I'm hitting 4,000 words a day sometimes.
Oh, wow,
3,000,
that's
4,000, yeah. But that's at the end, never at the beginning. It just
Yeah.
doesn't. I've never had that experience.
So about how many in a year, shall we say, ballpark?
Well, if I'm only writing in the summer, we're looking at 90 to 100,000 words.
That's still more than
basically.
most people are doing. You know, that's one
Yeah.
good solid book a year. And
Absolutely, yeah.
That's excellent.
And you know what? When I stop teaching again, I maybe I could double that. We'll see. You know,
Yeah.
because the other advice I would give everyone is revise, and I do a lot of revision.
And get a good editor.
Get a good editor. And you know what I'll tell you too, and I believe, you know, we all use spell check, of course, and word processor of some
Grammarly.
kind, right? Yeah, these are all great tools, and I know we're all thinking about AI, and I don't, you know, I don't advocate for AI in terms of creating anything.
Right.
But I do use, I guess it counts as AI to listen to my text when I'm editing.
Oh, you've got to listen to it because your ear will pick it out when it clunks. You'll know it.
And it will tell you when you've missed a word. And that's my biggest thing. I get going and I skip the little words.
Yeah.
You know, the, to.
Yeah.
And then you don't notice it because you know your text so well when you're reviewing it. You just don't notice it. And but whatever it is you're using, like Word or whatever that reads aloud, text to speech, it only reads what's there. So it's going to read it without those little words, and you're going to hear it. It's the best editing tool since spell check, in my opinion.
I absolutely recommend that to everyone.
Yeah,
read what you've written because it'll stand out when it's not right. And
you know, I used to read it myself, but you know, that's when the human element gets involved.
But you'll still skip over it, yeah.
Yeah, you still skip over it because you know what's coming next. When I was studying linguistics so long ago, I don't know the exact percentage, but so much of language is predicted, like in your head. You know what's coming next. That's what allows us to read words at any speed, at any reasonable speed. It's that we kind of anticipate what's coming next. And that's why you've seen those things where people use a number to replace the backwards letters.
But we have good pattern recognition, so yeah.
So I forget what the percentage is, but that's how we read, and so we are wired to skip words that we are expecting. So it's not a good practice to read it yourself. I don't believe it's better than not reading it out loud. But I used to do it. I called it the robot read, where you would read it kind of in a monotone just to pronounce every syllable to make sure you weren't missing. And I could catch things that way. But then along came text to speech. And it just makes for a better manuscript that you're submitting. And it's not writing it for you. It's not giving you ideas.
Yeah.
So
Jennifer has a question for you. Do you write an outline to start?
I have in the past, but my outlines are very bare bones. Now I write a series just of notes and ideas in a document. But I used to write, you know, here's what's going to happen, here's what's going to happen. And hopefully, especially with a mystery, I would know the ending before I started. And I think it's a good idea to start with the ending in a mystery, because then you can work backwards and, you know, you can plant your clues, your red herrings, you can tie everything together. So I used to do that, but it would be like a page or a page and a half of just, you know, and not good writing at all. Just like, and then this happens, this
rough
happens.
ideas. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I just put down ideas, and they're not even necessarily in order. I used to put them at the back of my, I still do that, I should say. When I'm writing the first draft, at the end, I will type notes, but that messes up your word count. When you're tracking your word
separate
count,
document,
yeah, because then it's like, oh, you know, I'm counting words that I'm just going to delete later, you know. So I don't like doing that, but that's just a quirk of mine. Another thing I do is I put notes into the manuscript. In Word, I'll highlight the word and then put a note. That doesn't count as the word count. And I do that for references. For example, like if it's a website that will confirm because it's a historical detail, I've had in the past editors say, "Are you sure about this?" And I was not able to find the reference again.
Right.
So now I do it. It's for me and it's for my editor to say, this happened, or here's the evidence that this is correct. In this word was being used, for example, in 1968. It's a term that we did use, that kind of thing. So I highly recommend annotating your manuscripts as you go. That works for me, and definitely use a read text to speech.
Especially anything which requires facts too. So
yeah.
Jennifer's got another question about how many words are in your books. You go for between 80 and 90,000?
Well, I started, they were about 85. The first one I think was 85, and then they kind of shot up over 100. It was Stone Cold Dead was the third book in the Ellie Stone series. It was actually 112,000 words.
Wow, and they took it. That's interesting.
They just made the print smaller. And
book was the same thickness, editor, just made it small print. Nobody can read it.
I know, and my editor, I asked him, and he said, "No, it's no big deal." He didn't mind. So, but now I brought it back because I think I can use that professional learning too, and say that's a little too long. And yeah. I think for mysteries, under 100,000, but more than 70,000 is really the sweet spot. I mean, a couple of mine have gone over 100, but wow. I think my reputation has been that I'm a little. Also, it's my narrator, Ellie Stone. She's precious with language, and she writes funny, kind of, and I think some very nice prose too. But I like to think she's witty and comes up with interesting imagery in her narration, which is why I love writing first person, by the way. And yeah. I don't know how the audience feels. I know, Dale, you also write first person. Every word in your book tells you about your narrator. And
the trouble is, I was a technical writer, and I follow, Hemingway and Elmore Leonard. It's like, leave out the parts that people skip, and it's so spare, but I don't like any fluff. But they're short, and they keep getting shorter.
but your character's observations, your character's choice of words, it's like that's not there with a third person narrator. So that's perfectly, legitimate and great. I just enjoy writing first person more personally, and I've written short stories in third person.
Yeah,
but my books have all been first person.
Yeah, I mean, look at Stephen King. I mean, whether it's short or whether it's one of the big fat ones that are 120,000 plus. Mm-hmm. I mean, but you're just invested in the story.
Yeah.
All the way to the end, whether it's short or long, you're there. And because everything matters. And I think that's more important than whatever arbitrary length is there.
Yeah. And there are books, the Robert Galbraith books are huge books. I mean, and people are buying those in the millions, I mean, the last one was I think it was 150,000 words. It was just huge.
Oh, Lord. So let's get to some of your influences. Who do you like and are reading possibly currently or have really enjoyed in the past?
Well, my background was really in, I studied, language and literature in college. So a lot of it was European literature and French and Italian and Spanish. I did mostly French and Italian. And so, all of the greats,
Sabatini, Dumas, Hugo.
Yeah, Dumas. Well,
I love all that.
I teach Dumas every year. I teach the Count of Monte Cristo to my French 3 students, and that's fun. It's the language is the problem with that is the language is very old, and it's really not. The vocabulary is not something maybe that they would need today.
Yeah, same with Dickens.
But the story is great, but it's a great story, But no, and then the Italian stuff, for example, I Turn to Stone is set in Florence, Italy in 1963. Oh, it's amazing. And it's an homage to Boccaccio and the Decameron. the structure, where there are 10 friends who go up to Fiesole to escape the plague.
Okay, that's
And
next on the list.
And they tell 10 stories a day, one each for 10 days, 100 stories. And the stories are funny. Some are tragic, some are very ribald, and it's just a great source. And so in my book, my 10 characters are trapped by instead of the plague, it's a scare, rubella scare in 1963. And so perfect. I said earlier, I love to trap my characters somewhere. And so this was they were quarantined for a few days. Whether it turns out to be an actual rubella outbreak, you'll have to read the book. But they tell stories. They have nothing else to do except think about the person who died just before they all went up to Fiesole. At any rate, so I do kind of an homage, and I borrow some of Boccaccio's stories and retell them. But they're giving clues in the story. It was a lot of fun to write. So
I'm going to be doing homage to
Italian,
Balzac.
Yeah, but I loved Zola, the
human
comedy. The whole human comedy thing. But also in American literature, as I grew up, I read everything from Fitzgerald to Hemingway, to Baldwin to, reading Steinbeck. I love, and then modern French, modern Italian as well. Camus and Sartre and all of that,
Eco.
Obviously. But then Eco, I love The Name of the Rose is still, I think, one of the top 3. Well, I don't know, top 1. Greatest,
one of the top.
One of the top. It's just really great, I think. And I met him once.
Oh, cool.
Well, I was at NYU, and I was the director of the Italian Cultural Center, which was on 12th Street, and he had an apartment on West 12th Street. His son, I think it was his son's apartment, but whenever he was in New York, he would stay there, and it was like a block and a half away. And so we like to attract Italian cultural figures to our place, and so we used to do a Friday afternoon cocktail hour just for the department. The Italian department was there, and all of us we just like to get together and have a couple of drinks and eat some Parmesan cheese, that kind of thing. So I sent him a letter at the time. This was a long time ago, and I told him about this, and I said, you should stop by, sometime. And so one Friday afternoon, I got a call from the front desk saying, Jim, there's a Mr. Umberto Eco down here to see you. So
and you're like, yeah, God. Sure.
He was there, so he came down, and he knew the professor who was the head of the department. They were old friends. So, but he sat there with us, and chatted and drank wine and had cheese with us.
Wow.
It was wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, I met some of my writing heroes, and it's just a wonderful experience. It's just fabulous.
Well, you, Stephen King, right?
Yep, and Harlan Ellison. I met John D. MacDonald's grandson. I've met a bunch of writers that I was very fortunate. Fred Paul, Kate Wilhelm, a lot of the old-time classic science fiction writers and more. And, they say don't meet your heroes. I've met a lot of really, really cool people.
Yeah, it is great. And so, but in our community, I mean, again, it was like in the 80s that I started reading. I think Dick Francis was just a huge influence on me. I loved his books, but not only. I mean, the classics as well.
Well, for me, the best horse racing book ever was Seabiscuit by Laura Hillebrand.
Oh,
she wrote so I felt like it was on the horse in the race. Feeling the sweat, hearing the crack of the whip, seeing the clods of dirt fly up in your face. Yeah. You felt it. That's how good she is.
It is a wonderful book. And by the way, this is mine. I just love this cover because the power of the horse, the size of the horse, and you see that 1,000 pounds of horse on one spindly leg. The other 3 are in the air.
That's like the Muybridge pictures that he did of the horses in motion. And
I think that this amazing detail, I don't think you can really see it, but the delicate way the jockey is just barely holding
lightly on the reins.
Just lightly on the rein. It's just a beautiful photograph, and I take no credit for it. It was the publisher who selected it, did it, but I just love that cover. At any rate, that book is I think it's my most popular book, A Stone's Throw. It's the one with the best ratings on all of the things. I think because people love the horses in it. Yeah.
People love horses. Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of famous, how'd you get to Hollywood?
Well, it goes back to NYU. I had a student who worked for me at the Casa Italiana, which was the Italian house there. And his family was from Florence, and they had a small subtitling company. And at the beginning of the DVD era, they went out to Hollywood and met with the studios, and they were given work, so they suddenly had to open an office out there. And so this student came back to me and thought I might be a good fit to help them. And so he hired me away. It was a big risk. I don't know. I said, well, maybe I'll do 2 years out in LA because I'm more of an East Coast guy. But my wife and I loved it out there. We really did. And it led to a long career, and the company grew, and then it was purchased by a big company. And, we set up offices all over the world. And we translated into 52 languages. Wow. It was a lot of fun. And then the same company needed somebody to set up a new place in a new lower cost center. So that was the visual effects. And so they tapped me and my wife to set up a second company in India, which now has, when we started with 0, and it was, last I heard was 3,000 employees, something, or no, it might have been 1,200 or something. But it's been now 12 years or 13 years since I left that, so I don't know what they're doing today. But a great work experience. But that's how I got to Hollywood. We moved for my wife's job after I retired, and we moved to Seattle for a couple of years. Yeah, I retired, and now I'm back. And then we moved to Seattle, and then from Seattle to Boston for her work. And then during COVID, I just felt like I've got to get out and do something. And so I got my teaching certification, and then the rest is history. So I'm doing this for a few years until I can't do it anymore, I guess. But it's
the nice thing about writing is you can't. Herman Wouk, over 100, still pushing it out every day,
And I loved his book so much. And another great just passed away too, Frederick Forsyth, another one of my favorites, and I can't say he's a great influence because I don't really write that kind of book. Although Bombay Monsoon is a thriller of sorts,
and it is a page turner. So
Oh, thank you. But it's not quite Frederick Forsyth.
No, but you got to find out what. Yeah, there was not enough guns in it, but you've got to find out what happens, and that's what a story should be. To tell you the story and have you so wrapped up in it that you want to get to the end, you've got to know what happened, and that's
and Bombay Monsoon. The tagline for this one, what's it called? The elevator pitch was. It was Graham Greene, another favorite writer. Graham Greene meets Gatsby on the subcontinent.
I like that. Yeah.
The relationship with the neighbor, the shady neighbor.
A little Somerset Maugham in there as well.
Oh yes, absolutely. Maugham, who, by the way, in case some in the audience don't know, his famous quote: "There are 3 rules to writing a great novel." Unfortunately, nobody knows what they are. That's
when you know someone's being genuine.
Yeah.
Instead of feeding you the lines, like Hemingway would always, put on the interviewers, and tell them all this crap. So do you have a grand plan of a bunch of books you want to write, or do they just come one at a time? I mean, unfortunately, I do. Sometimes I've got so many ideas that they push to the front and fight each other for top priority.
Yeah, mine tend to come one at a time. With the Ellie Stone books, I think I had a few in line in my mind. Also, with the Ellie Stone books, they're kind of driven by the titles that I come up with.
The Stone comments.
The Stone, yeah. So very common expressions with the word stone in them in English. And so, they can be little, like sticks and stone, no stone unturned.
Oh, I've got one for you.
Thrown.
I've got a new one for you. The Sisyphus Stone.
Oh, that's a good one. I hadn't thought of that one. That's an excellent one. But they're still synced like a stone, etched in stone,
Oh, like a rolling
or written in
stone.
stone, one or the other. Yeah.
No
So there
stone
are a couple
unturned.
left. Well, that one
Luckily,
is
there's a
there.
lot of
Yeah,
good titles in that. It's like,
yeah.
yeah,
I
Sue
think I've got
Grafton
like,
ran out near the end, but
yeah, I think there are like 4, maybe 5 decent ones left, and then I wouldn't be necessarily comfortable with them, but that shouldn't stop it. I mean, you could always change the title somewhat.
yeah, Barry Eisler
Do a
had the same
different,
thing
a
with his
different
John
trick.
Rain character, and they insisted Rain was in every title. He's like, I'm getting sick of this.
Yeah, I like the Sisyphus stone. That's a good one.
Yeah, I just came out. I'm like, that would be great because, you know, you've got a metaphor, you've got a theme. There you go.
There could be like skipping stone. Well, skipping stones. You know, you could think. And so, sink like a stone. Obviously, somebody gets drowned, murdered by drowning or something.
Yeah.
And I am a fan, and I would give this advice to. I think you probably know. You certainly know this as well. Give this advice to any writer writing mystery or crime fiction: is be careful with guns, because in your writing and in life, but be careful with guns because the experts are out there just waiting to catch you.
Yeah.
And so I always say that I'm a fan of the blunt object for my murder weapon.
It was a rock.
Or a fall from a great height. You know, those are the ones that I tend to use.
Defenestration is always good.
Defenestration is good. So you want to just be careful with guns and trains apparently too. And this wasn't quite that, but I'll tell one quick story of this one, Cast the First Stone. I remember sharing the cover. It's set in 1961 in Los Angeles, or 62, February 62. And within 5 minutes of me posting this cover, when it was finally revealed, somebody answered and said, that model of Volkswagen bus is at least 5 years too new to be 1962.
Within 5 minutes of posting the cover.
Within 5 minutes. And I said, well, I didn't choose the cover, but yeah.
But thank you.
Sorry. Yeah.
It's the willing suspension of disbelief.
Yeah. So be careful with that.
Yeah, be careful with any facts. And I tell people, and they're like, always double check, talk to an expert. I mean, even with poker, they always get it wrong in movies. They always get it wrong. With guns, it's always the smell of cordite. And I'm going, no. Yeah. You've got professional editors. You've got New York. You should know this. And they still put it out.
Yes, they do. And make
not
sure
allergies,
you know
peanut allergies.
Where the engine is in the car.
Yeah.
Some cars have the engine in the back.
Because you go overseas and it could be anywhere.
it could be in the back, and just be careful. Yeah.
So what other advice would you give to our audience of what they can do, how to plan a career, how to keep going?
I think it should go without saying, you have to treat it like a job in the best sense of the word job. It's like you have to be professional about it. You can publish it yourself, as I said, that there's no shame, there's nothing at all wrong with that. That is fantastic. But you have to, don't just finish it and say, okay, I finished it, I didn't even spell check, and I'm going to put it up online. No. Get a professional editor. You were saying, Dale, get a professional editor. Try to get somebody to, a good cover designer maybe, or a book, what do they call it? A book designer. Mm-hmm. These things do cost money. And then, treat your work like a professional product, but also be honest in your work. I don't think you can chase trends and fads unless it's something you are passionate about. It's, remember when vampires were in? I mean,
Sparkly
maybe they'll come
vampires.
Back. Yeah. Yeah. But so, by the time they always say, by the time your book is finished, it's following that train has
gone,
left the station. And so, do that. I like to use this example when I talked to my kids at school recently. I did a talk to the ones who were interested in writing. And I said, well, first of all, I had to kind of explain who Scheherazade was. But I said, do you know, some of them had heard of Scheherazade. At least they had heard of the thousand or some of the stories from it. But I said, Scheherazade she told stories to save her life. What inspires you?
Right, like that.
Yeah. So you have to have a real desire to do it right. And I think people do. And I would never say that they don't, but just always remember that. And don't, be open to criticism, but don't lose faith in your own vision.
Right.
Keep
your voice unique. Don't do what everybody else is doing.
Exactly. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with, some of the greatest writers probably we've never heard of because they never got published.
I know.
I mean, that can be true too.
And that doesn't have to happen anymore. And I tell people, try to help them get to that point where they can be professional enough to get it published and not be embarrassed by it 5 years later.
Exactly.
Okay, folks, we're getting near the end. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A. We've only got a few more minutes before Robert cuts us off. So if you could write any other book and it would be your name on it instead of theirs, what would it be?
Well, it's funny that you put that last proviso in there because I used to say, what book would you like to write? And I used to say, you can understand this. Any book with Stephen King's name on it.
Right, right. Just to get it published and make the sales.
Yeah. No, there are some books. Again, I mentioned people like Graham Greene. I mean, I just think everything he wrote was just amazing. But there's so many. But yeah, if I could write, if I could ever have anything approaching the, the reputation or the legacy of somebody like Graham Greene or Frederick Forsyth, I mean, these are just some amazing writers. So that would be my answer.
Excellent. Catherine asks, what are you most proud of related to your writing career? Good question. Thank you, Catherine.
I think the the awards have been really rewarding. I guess that's why they say that. They're called that. My books have been, nominated the finalists 20 or short stories too 21 times
Wonderful.
For these big awards. And so and I walked away with 4 of them, which I always say for like a batting average isn't too bad for a writer. For a
200 player, that's good.
It's a little low for a baseball player, but but for a writer it's damn good. So I guess it's that, but also I would say this, calling myself, having not the courage, but the legitimacy to refer to myself as a writer. Because for years I didn't call myself a writer, not because I didn't write, but because I didn't feel I deserved it yet.
Right. Well, I knew when cash-strapped editors at small publications were giving me money for something I wrote when they get dozens or hundreds of submissions. And they kept choosing mine over and over again. I go, folks, that's the criteria. Kathleen says she appreciates the idea of keeping track of your writing, that we get lazy or prone to procrastination. Absolutely. Chart, because you've got the motivation to keep going. And Tatiana says, what's a good place to find a reputable publisher? And what is a great programmer tool for revisions and checking grammar? We went to that. And she says, thank you for all the insight and the time.
I think, well, you know what, I would have to say the best place to find a good, did you say editor or publisher?
Publisher.
The best place is going to be through an agent, because they are professionals who deal with publishers all the time. They know what the publishing houses are doing, big and small. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean it's not okay to do it yourself or to build your own brand. There are people who have done that and done very, very millions and millions of dollars well. The Martian, for example. I mean, that
Andy Ware, Hugh Howey.
Yeah.
Exactly. Joe Conrath, Dean Wesley Smith.
There are so many. And but I do, an agent pays it. They do pay for themselves, I think, if it's a good agent. So agents are a great thing to have, but get one that loves your work, that acts professionally. I know a lot of writer friends who say, well, my agent takes forever to read my books, and that's not good. I've been fortunate. My agents they get to the books very, very quickly, the ones that I've had, and they've read
Wonderful.
my, yeah. So, you know, I think I've been incredibly lucky that way. It's really hard to get an agent.
I recommend they go to conferences, because that's where the
Yeah.
agents go to look for new material and new people to sign.
Yes,
And
and
you
they
get
do
to
think,
spend actual time with them instead of a letter that they look at for 30 seconds and throw away, if that.
yeah, because Dale, you're right. An agent gets hundreds and hundreds a week of query letters. In a sense, they're almost looking for a reason to put it to one side.
Absolutely.
I just can't, they've got to say, wow, this thing just grabbed me by the throat. I've got to find out more for them to be interested. That's a long shot. And I never feel bad when somebody turns down my books. An editor turns down and rejects it. It has to publish a book, somebody has to love it. And to represent an author, they have to love what you're doing too.
Right.
So look for an agent that you're compatible with. Do your research if you're looking for an agent. And what were the next questions? Oh, we've talked about it.
Yeah, revisions.
Really
What's the best tools for revisions in grammar?
It is text to speech. And now I'm
And
using
a critique group, I think.
I used to use Word because the text to speech has really improved, but I work on the iPad, and there was this great voice that suddenly disappeared. And now I've got some other voice that I don't like. So I went and found a program, and I always said I wouldn't plug them unless they gave me money, but okay, I'll plug them.
Maybe they'll send it to you now.
Yeah, it's called Speechify, and it
Yeah.
costs about $150 a year, but they've got just dozens of voices, American, English, Australian, it's Irish. They've got French, Italian. They've got different.
Love that. I'd love that.
And you can pick different voices for your editing. I highly recommend it, and they're pretty realistic. I mean, they're very realistic, but they will have. It's called Speechify.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah. Now it does cost. It's $150 a year, but I
There's
use it.
always new tools. That's the great thing, is things are always popping up. So you gotta keep up with the times.
Absolutely.
Okay, Robert, I think it's about time for you to horn in there. Jim, thank you so much. This has been terrific. I mean, I
Dale,
love
I had
these.
a wonderful time. Great
Why, these
question.
are great.
Really great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You want to put your website in the chat?
Oh, it's just jameswziskin.com.
Okay.
But if you just look my name, it should show up. It's a, it's nothing fantastic, but it's just functional, which is,
Mhm.
I hope it looks okay. That's all.
Well, they'll let you know if it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. And look for The Prank in 2026. I think it's a fun book. I mean, it's tragic, but it's fun.
Julia says, thank you. You inspire her.
Great. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
a
hope
lot of
so.
thank yous in the chat, so that's good to see. And so we'll be keeping an eye out for The Prank next year, Jim. I'll include your website in the follow-up email I send tonight, along with this recording. Dale, as always, great job. Jim, it was a pleasure to listen to you for 75 minutes. I learned a lot, and I look forward to reading some of your older books. Yeah, so folks, let's give Jim and Dale a big virtual round of applause for a great conversation, and we'll see you all next month.
And fill out those survey forms.
Thank you, Dale.
Thank you
Dale.
again. Awesome.
Yep. Thanks, Jim. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.